Welcome to our webinar on what is new on Sage 300, the product that we've all used for many, many years. And now we want to talk about some of the new features. So let's look at the next slide there, please, Jill. So I'm Paul Caron, CEO of Caron and the owner of the company. I've been doing this for about 25 years now. So it's kind of nice to see new features coming out in our happy tried and true Sage 300 product, which I still call ACPAC from time to time. Today's presentation will be led by Jill Fisher, who's our senior Sage 300 consultant, and she'll walk you through several things. So let's have a look at the agenda. So what we're going to talk about, Jill will go through what's new in Sage 2023, and also we'll touch on some of the improvements on other versions, recent versions of the product, because a few of us are a few versions behind. She's going to demonstrate visual process flows, and the third item is a really important one. If you're on an older version of Sage 300, there's been some changes to the security, and we need to update those clients that are on older versions to make sure that the product still works after this fall. Jill will show us a little bit about web screens, which Sage has invested a lot of money into and a lot of time, and they're really starting to look good. And then she'll spend some time on tips and tricks with the software. We're also going to just talk a little bit about some of the third-party applications that we use. Most of you know that we like to limit the number of third-party applications that we deal with. We only want to deal with the ones that are tried and true, and those ones always keep up with Sage. So we'll talk about just a little bit of a discussion on what they're doing to keep up there. We've been doing this for a while, and we are not alone. We're supported very well by Sage, both Sage in North America and in Latin America, and also Sage International. So it's a really large organization, and the advantage for us and for you is that we do get a lot of support with the products. We get support with issues that we may run into, and we have a great working relationship over all of these years. So the next slide, I just want to talk a little bit about our relationship to the mining industry. As most of you know, this is really all we do. 99.9% of our clients are mining companies, and everybody on the call today will be from mining companies. We have put a lot of our effort into this. Our software is really tailored to mining companies. We introduce products and functions and processes that we know are important to you. We provide support in Canada. We also have a presence in Peru because a lot of our clients are in South America. We're dealing with clients in Africa and the US and all over the place. So this is really what we do. And our approach is really to hire teams with knowledge of mining, knowledge of accounting, and knowledge of software. And together with that information, we cater to you and try to support you well. So that's about us, and I'm now going to turn it over to Jill. Take it away, Jill.
Thank you, Paul. All right, hi everybody. So I'm going to be dealing with the bulk of the presentation today, which would be going 2020. All right. So what we've noticed in the trend with the releases of Sage is that they've, like you said, they've been improving constantly. Some of the changes aren't that big that you see them, that they're obvious to you in terms of design and what Sage looks like. I mean, it's tried and true. When you log onto Sage, everything makes sense because they haven't done too much in terms of the look and feel. Everything still looks exactly the same. It's stable. It's good. You'll notice when I get to the later versions, some things will be a little bit more obvious. And a lot of things happen in the background. You won't often know to look for them. So that's why we have these sessions, just to, make you aware of this is new and this has changed and what to look out for if you need to make any adjustments to your configuration and how Sage works. Okay, so jumping into version 2020, I've highlighted the main changes in that version. which would be the introduction of a module called multiple contacts for vendors. What you can do with this new feature is that you can have, usually on your AP vendor master, you have a field for a vendor contact. So you have a space for one, right? So the idea of multiple contacts is that you can add multiple contacts to your contact list, and you'll be able to send out documentation to them by adding the email addresses. And those can be purchase orders, they can be any types of reports or forms that you would want to send automatically through the setup emailing system, Sage to your Microsoft, and you'd be able to send documents as part of the multiple contacts for vendors. Often you'll find that you want to send an EFT remittance to multiple accounting users at one of your vendors. You'll be able to do that with this feature. Okay. The second highlighted piece is the improvement of the 1099 CPRS codes in Sage. These you add on the vendor master. So what Sage has done, it allows you the ability to add non-standard codes. You can add these, make it a little bit more descriptive in your vendor master, and then you'd be able to attach them to your vendors and then print out the relevant reports for your 1099, your CPRS reporting. The 1099 is obviously for the US, CRS codes for Canada. Okay. Another improvement that they've done on this piece is that you were previously only able to use predefined forms to print out your T5018 forms. You can now do that on plain paper. So that's the enhancement that they've made in this version for that piece of on your vendors. Improved help functionality. So before the help files, F1, it tells you exactly whichever screen you're on in Sage, you click the F1 button and it will give you the information about that feature or about that screen. What's nice that they've done in 2020, they've modernized the look and feel. You can actually use this standalone in a browser. So it'll take you, if you click F1 on a screen, it takes you immediately to the new and improved help functionality. At the same time, you now have additional menu items in Sage that will allow you to click on the help function, and that will either lead you to an online forum or the exact screens that I've just explained now, or it's just and even a web chat. So by doing this, you're often not, you don't have to be logged into Sage in order to access these functions. You can just use your web browser, and that's been the big improvement on the help on the 2020 version. And the next one that was pretty nice as well is that they have now introduced online feeds for your bank reconciliations. So you're able to link your bank and download your bank statements into Sage. So there's a little functionality on the next screen that I'll show you now, where you can do reconcile e-statements. You connect your bank, and then you'll be able to download that statement straight into Sage based on a date range, if you will. What's nice about this is that it caters for a big range of banks. If you do not find it on this list, you can obviously, you can search for it firstly, or if it's not listed, we can obviously send a request to Sage to have it added, and they can obviously give us a timeline as to when that could happen. But majority of the banks for US, Australia, Canada, they would be in this drop-down country list. 2021, right? So you'll notice that there's a theme. The security actually improves as the versions go on, because Windows is constantly releasing updates, and therefore obviously Sage needs to keep up with them as well. So for version 2021, they've enforced stronger security settings. This is all done in the background, so typically an end user wouldn't notice this, but when we get these notifications that something has changed, we then update your configuration to make sure that we abide by those changes that Sage has released in order to keep your system as safe and secure as possible. So you don't see these settings in the background, but we do often recommend that it would either be through a patch or through a change to your configuration background to make sure that you're safe and secure. The next highlight for version 2021 is the use of longer numbers for checks. Previously, you could do up to 9 characters, and now the system is allowing you to do up to 15. One thing we do advise against is if you use third-party software that integrates with Sage, that they can handle those changes as well. But most of our third parties, have been tried and tested. Their releases are usually on par with when Sage does their updates, so they're always, in sync. On 2021, we also have the process flows. I don't know if you've ever seen them in Sage. They're at the bottom of the menus. They allow you to visually see what to do in an AP process or a GL process or a bank process. When you click on one of the images or the icons, it then takes you straight to a Sage screen. What's nice about this is they had to revamp it because Adobe Flash was discontinued. So they rewrote it, made it a little bit better. And now it also allows you to create your own visual process flows and edit existing ones. So I'll go to, when I get further down the presentation, I'll show you exactly what the designer looks like. If you have users who only do one specific function, you give them access to that. They go through the visual process flows and they click on exactly the icons that they need and just to do their job, and that's perfect. If you wanted to limit what people see in Sage, not just through the security, but through the visual process flows, you can do that as well. If they're only ever going to do payments, you assign a visual process flow, and that takes them straight to those screens without needing to do anything else in Sage. So they're pretty nice because they're descriptive, and it just looks really cool. The last improvement for version 2021 is that they've improved the web screens. Again, you'll see an ongoing theme where every release mentions improved web screens. They're constantly adding new web screens, new functionality for a range of the modules. So Sage has your standard finance modules, AP, AR, GL, bank. They've added, IC, order entry, project job costing as the versions have gone on to make sure that you have a full experience of both everything that you can do on the desktops, the classic screens, as well as the web screens. So that has been a constant improvement, as Paul mentioned earlier on, that they put a lot of resources into making the web screens as close to the classic screens as possible. Okay. Next version is 2022. And the highlights that I've taken out for this piece is the ability to add negative additional costs on purchase order credit notes. This allows you to enter negative amounts on the additional costs tab, for example, shipping or restocking fees when you return an item. So these will obviously kick in when you run day-in processing, and will just make for easier flow of the transactions that go through that affect your stock, and then obviously go through to your GL. I think this is a pretty nice piece, is that you can now set the expected arrival date and location for all details on purchase order. If you had a 10 or 15/9 PO and you forgot to put in the expected arrival date on the header of the document, usually when you put the header in, it copies that same details down to the lines. If you forget to do it and you go to 15/9 PO, you have to do it manually. There's a button that allows you to put in the expected arrival date on the header. You hit the button and it copies that expected arrival date for all of the details. There will be times when the details will differ depending on when those items will come into, when you're expecting them to arrive. You can still do a manual change there, but if it's the same date for all the lines, this button will be just click the button and it copies it down. The same with the location. If you forget to put it on the header, and then it doesn't copy down to the lines, you can then do that with the location button, which is really nice. Also a key feature on version 2022 is the ability to reserve a land pack license. So your land packs are your user licenses. They are concurrent, meaning anybody can log in at any one time. If you reach the max, no one else can get in. Someone else has to log out for that person to go in, but it's not named. This allows you to name a license. So you can assign reserve a license by user. That person will always be able to get into Sage, okay? Because they have a reserved license. We We like to use these for integrated products that need to use a license. For example, if you have a workflow solution, purchasing workflow solution, that is a user that constantly needs to log in and out of Sage to perform on the web approvals. So we usually set PW Web up as a reserve LandPack user. That way that user will always have access to Sage, and you won't run into issues when you've got 5 licenses and all 5 are being used, and PW Web will be able to log in. So we, sorry, we like to promote this feature as something that'll help you manage your license count as well. The last piece on the, sorry, on the complexity of passwords. Now that once you've installed 2022 and you're prompted to change your password, you can't just use three characters anymore. It has to now be letters and numbers, and not just through a setting that you put through the database security. So the system will force you to make your password a little bit more secure. This is only if you use Sage authentication for your user passwords. If you use Windows authentication, then Windows will take care and use their own password policy. So you don't have to set it up in the background to force complexity. This is the minute you use Sage 2022, it forces you to do so. Okay. Again, you'll notice that as we get to the next version, that they're constantly changing the need to improve your security and keep your password safe and secure. On to version 2023. So now we have a little bit of a change in terms of what the product looks like. We now have an updated icon. It's black. So Sage went through a little bit of a rebranding as well at this stage. So the Sage logo is a little different, as you can see in the top corner of the screen. And we now have a new icon for Sage 300. So it's still green, a little bit of green, but it's got black as well. So on the other improvements, so part of the 2023 version is that we now they've moved some of the menu items that we currently could only use by being logged into Sage to the Windows Start menu. So if you need to check current users logged in, usually you have to do that by logging into Sage, or if you needed to what else? System logging into the database setups and things like that. We can now do that from outside of Sage, and we don't have to interrupt when we need to do some work and all your users are logged in and consuming all the land packs. We can do that outside of the system now. So they've improved the menu item bars where you find database utilities, where you find admin utilities and things like that as well, to see your licenses, your license manager. So we don't don't have to physically log into Sage to see those things. We can now see them outside of the system. And for me, the key update, or the key piece of the 2023 update is, 2023 version and feature is the user activity report. We haven't had this in Sage before. We have a user authorizations report, which you can print to see the users and the security groups and the accesses they have. But now we have something called a user activity report that's been released for 2023 product update 1. So this user activity report is pretty nice because we often had clients ask us, how can we see when a user was lost in Sage? And usually that's not really information that Sage stores unless you have full audit software. So what's nice about this report is that you'd be able to see the user's actions in Sage. So when they logged in, when they logged out, when they opened a screen, closed a screen, if they were forcefully evicted, the date and time, company ID, as well as the action that was performed and the screen name that they were on. So to me, it's going to be very helpful. You'd be able to run it for a date range per user, one company, multiple companies. So I think it's going to help quite a bit if you at audit time, if you needed to know this information that it's now being stored. However, just one thing to notice that when we install 2023, it needs to be turned on so that we can start logging the information from the minute your users start working in the 2023 version. Okay. And as I said, it was a running theme about the user passwords is that now, before Sage used to convert everything to uppercase. When you log in, it didn't matter whether it was uppercase, lowercase. Now it's enforced that you have to have a lowercase letter, uppercase letter, a number, and a special character when you log into Sage. And then you can still use the system security to force the password expiry every 30, 60, 90 days. That piece you still have to set, but this we cannot get away from. It's forcing complexity either way, starting with the version before this. Okay, so just a quick slide to show you where you can find the user activity report. It is under administrative reports, user activity. And what that looks like is something like this. So you'd be able to see run it for companies, one company, date range, and by user. You got your date and time, company ID they logged into, what the action was, and the platform. Platform is quite nice because like I've mentioned before, we often refer to classic screens versus web screens. And that's how you can differentiate between the two. Okay. Screen IDs, that's a background Sage thing, but you have the screen name. So you can see that, okay, they were in the bachelor's, they created a new year and went into the fiscal calendar. Okay, and then obviously you'll have your IP address, wherever the source that you logged into. And you can obviously export this to Adobe, to PDF, to Excel as well. Okay. So just a quick view of what the visual processes look like. When you log into Sage, it's the menu bar it's the menu list at the bottom. When you click on enter invoices, what that will do is it'll open up an invoice screen right from this menu. So you don't have to go through AP transactions, invoice batch list, open up an invoice. You can go straight there. This is what's so nice about these visual process flows, is that it maps out your process completely. All you need to do is just click on these little buttons and it takes you exactly where you need to go. What I've got open here with the screenshot is of the actual designer. So you are able to build your own process flow, because some users will only do invoices, some will only do payments, and then you'll be able to build them. You save them, and then you would assign them to users. It's all part of admin services, so it has to be an administrator that does this piece. Okay, little bit of technical pieces coming into the presentation now. So so what this means is, with Microsoft, they've created an update of the TLS, which is the transport layer security on your servers. So 1.2 and 1.3 have been released. And as Sage has improved in the background with security, we now have to make sure that our product is on par with Microsoft's changes as well. And what that means is that 1.0 and 1.1 now only service the versions 2020.7. 0.7 means product update 7 and earlier. So if you're on version 2018, 2019, as of September 2023, the Sage servers will stop accepting communication from those products. What that means is Sage works on subscription licensing now. So when you log in, your system tries to connect to the Sage licensing server using the TLS, right? So what's going to happen is that once this deadline has been reached and 1.0 and 1.1 are no longer supported, you won't be able to access Sage. Okay, so versions 2020.8 and older are currently on TLS 1.2, and those are still supported. So this change means that if you're on those versions, Sage won't be able to verify that you have a valid license or subscription, and you won't be able to go into Sage. It will only be, you will be able to go in, but read-only mode only. You won't be able to do any transactions. And this is the key, why we like to keep everybody on a supported version of Sage, just to keep you current with security, just to make your system, again, as secure as possible. So those are the changes that are coming. Sage have given us a date, month, September 2023. So we're going to try and obviously get everybody supported or onto a supported version before that date. Okay. But as we mentioned earlier, a lot of updates have gone into the web screens. It's a different look and feel. How it kind of works is that you set up your Sage in the classic on your hosted server, your on-premise server, and they run in parallel. So all the information is real time. It's just a different it's a different way of looking at the screens. Screens look a little bit different look and feel. Again, it comes down to what your preference is. You can work between the two if you enjoy using the web screens, but welcome to do so. And classic screens, you get used to either one. I mean, you've been using the classic screens for so long that sometimes you don't like to change, but sometimes change is good. So, so the key to the web screens is that it has to be installed on premise, but we allow external links via the web. So it works through a web browser. All of the major web browsers are supported, but you have to be on the same network as your server in order to use this. Okay, so just a quick view of what this looks like in Sage or when you launch it. So this is the home screen. So when you log in, you will, again, the security and everything works together. So what that means is that you will be able to see your full menu on the left-hand side. So all the modules that you have access to, you'll be able to see on the left. If you don't have access to it, you won't see it. Same Sage rules apply to the web screens as well. So your home screen, you get to customize using widgets, and these will apply to your own profile. So your screen might look different from somebody else's screen, depending on what their function is and what they do. So for example, your AP team will probably want to see things like aging, bank balances, GL balances, and things like that. So we have a couple of options on the ad widgets. Not all of them apply. Some of it is usually for sales, which we don't use. But you'll be able to keep one or two, depending on the size of the screen. You can get up to max 6 in there. I just chose 4 just to show you what it would look like. So these are the widgets, again, customized by user. You can hide the menu bar on the left-hand side, and if you notice that. So I have my expanded menu items, and then on the next screen, I've hidden them a little bit, but the icons are still there. And just to give you a quick view of what it would look like if you opened up the GL batch list, this is what your web screen version looks like compared to your classic screens. So again, you double click, it'll open up the actual batch, or you can create new batches. Most of the core functionality is there. So again, they keep improving them as Sage releases product updates and things like that. So so I just want to do a quick, before I get to tips and tricks, which will take me to Sage. So I think you've noticed on the top bar that it's a different color. So basically Sage uses color coding for companies. This is part of my tips and tricks. So whatever color you make the border of Sage, it also filters down through to the web screens. Okay. So back onto the web screens. Like I've mentioned earlier in the presentation, they've been constantly updating these web screens as the versions have been doing releases. So there's been a big push. Sometimes a version or a product update has been released. Nothing to do with the classic screens, but they've improved the web screens, especially for those users who use them a lot. As I mentioned earlier, you can go between classic screens, web screens, whatever your preference is. The link can be made available so that you can access it once connected to your VPN, but you don't actually want to log on to the remote desktop server if you want to access your web screens. The classic screens do just as well in that space. So on the next slide, you'll be able to see an example of what the web screens look like. Again, the color coding matches exactly what you have set up in Sage. If you do those, you can, your menu bars on the left-hand side, it's just got a different look and feel. You can see it's a little bit more modernized and things like that. You can add your widgets by user, as you can customize the screen. Again, it saves it onto your username, so you'll be able to change them as you see fit, or look at the things that are more applicable to your job role. an example of a GL batch list. So, I mean, it's all good and fine just to see screenshots, but we want to see what actually happens when you log on and how to log on, essentially, how to use those web screens. So I'm going to do a quick demo and hop to my server. So this is the classic screens. In order to use the web screens, you'll be going through your browser, whether it be Safari, Firefox, I think Microsoft Edge still works, and Chrome. Chrome is the favored one. So you can launch your browser. I've bookmarked the site, so I've saved it already. So I'm going to hit my my login screen. They've also improved the speed at which this loads, because typically this does tend to take a little bit of time to load. Initially, you will see a little bit of decreased speed, but once you've had it open, you go back in, log out, log back in, it does get faster. So you can select your company from the company list, the one that you have access to, and you can hit the sign in. You can save your password. If it's only you that's logging in, you'll be able to always have that available, your username and your password. When it does change through your security settings, just remember that you need to remember that if it's changed on Classic, it'll change on web screens as well. Okay, so this is your home screen. If I expand the little bar on the side, I can see all my different modules. So we have access to, if you were a purely admin person and all you did was create users and give user access, you have that ability to do so. If I hop to accounts payable, we've got the full menu, transactions, transaction reports, periodic processing, set up vendors and vendor reports with all the batch processing as well. Something to note, when you export to PDF, the reports also have the same look and feel as they do in Sage. Okay, so if I go to my, for example, my transactions, and I go to my invoice batch list, again, looks exactly like you would see it on the classic screens. You can double click to open a batch. Or not. Okay, let's click the open button. Sorry about that. So this will allow you to view the batch as well as the batch entries. This is your header information. At the bottom, you will see your details along with your GL account and the description and the amounts as well. So again, look and feel is very modernized, very different from the classic screens. Again, you choose what it is that you want to see as well and how you want to work. And if you prefer this way, then that works just as well. A little note on the LAN packs. The system will be able to see what screen you've got open, right? It'll know the source, whether you're going web screens or classic screens. They will each use a LAN pack. So that means that if you're logging into both at the same time, you'll be consuming 2 LAN packs. However, on the classic screens, if you open another company, then that will still only consume 1 LAN pack. So you can have multiple companies open on the desktop. That'll only consume 1, but if you're in the web screens as well as the Sage Classic screens, then you'll be using 2 licenses. Okay, LAN packs licenses, same thing. So again, if I go to my general ledger, for example, and I want to open an additional window, this little button over here on the side will say, oh, I've got 2 windows open. That's my window manager. If I want to swap back to the AP, I can. If I want to go back to GL accounts, then I can do so as well. And then I'm going to open up another window for the, let's go GL transactions, and open up our batch list. And now we have 3 windows open. So that basically allows you to toggle between your windows. I'm going to go back to home for a second because I just want to show you the widgets. If I go view widgets, these are the available widgets. I'm not 100% sure if these are the only ones and if they're going to be adding any additional ones in the future, but these are the ones that we have. So for example, if we go income and expenses, we've got nothing there, so you just untick and it goes away. If you take income from operations, nothing there, you can untick and it goes away. And if you bring in account balances, you've got some information there, you want to keep that one, then you can try a different one. Let's go payables aging again, and then information, and you can keep those. So once those are set, you can just exit out of your widget screen. It goes away. toggle between my windows. Okay, so basically this is your screen. You customize it as you need it. And then basically when you log in again, it's going to have the same screens open. So again, third party, they add these as time goes on. As they finish off their web screens, you'll be able to see it here. Like EFT processing is pretty much done. So if you had EFT processing active, you'd be able to see it in this list as well, along with all the other third parties that have created web screens for their products. So just a quick demonstration of how to get into the web screens, how to log in, and how to navigate using your adding widgets, and then obviously your window manager, if you will. And to log out, all you need to do is hit the sign out button, or you could just close your browser and that will log you out. And that is it on the web screens. I've covered the changes in 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. Big focus on web screens and the improvements, as well as security in the background, user passwords, and then obviously some additional features in Sage. And also, so now we're going to come to the more demo of Sage, if you will, to explain a couple of tips and tricks that I like to share with my clients. If they know it, great. If this is something new to you, also great. If I can add value to anything that you do on a day-to-day basis, then I'll take that as a win. So I'm going to cover a couple of my favorites, which is UI profile maintenance, using the finders and how they kind of work, exports and scripts. I've mentioned a bit on the color-coded companies. What you can do when you've got a long list of companies that some users have access to and others shouldn't. If you don't, they can't enter it if they don't have access. But if you want to limit what that list looks like, you can do so. And then just go through a couple of things. And maybe if you didn't know this, you can do this in Sage, using credit cards as banks, and then how we like to use payment selection codes, especially when using third party. Okay, so in the UI profile maintenance, this is a feature that works hand in hand with user access. So my go-to example is usually on bank services, where if you need someone who can just enter and save bank entries, but they're not allowed to post. Sometimes you cannot segregate those functions. If you give them bank entries, they have the ability to add, save, and post, and you can't segregate those functions. We're using UI profile maintenance. What we can do is we can actually hide the post button by customizing that screen. So so what we like to do is we give them the access through bank services. Bank entry is the security feature, and then or the access, and then we create a UI profile on that screen to hide the post button. So what will happen is when the user logs in, they can enter into the bank entry, and they can add it or save it, and that's the end of it. They do not see that post button, therefore they cannot post. Something else will have that access, and they'll be able to post it. So this is just one of the tips that we like to use when we can't fully get there using the security access, the standard security access in Sage. Another example I like to use is the currency screens. If you've ever opened up the currency screen, you know that there's an add button and a delete button and a defer propagation button. So what happens on this screen is that delete actually deletes the entire currency rate table from Sage, and there's no way to get it back. So what we've done is, if you have a user that enters the daily rates, weekly rates, average rates, so anybody that can enter rates into Sage, the delete button is on that screen and we can't take it away. There is no save, add, and delete as a separate function. We, again, create a UI profile, hide, delete. So we hide the delete button from the actual currency screen. That will safeguard the ability to delete an entire rate table from Sage. Okay, on finders. So I'm actually going to go into Sage for this piece. So I just want to show you what I've done on the currency screens. So this is the currency screen. The delete button is in this little space over here. So again, click delete by accident, which has happened before, deletes the entire table, and you kind of had to like restore a backup. So this is how we assign customizations to screens. We hide certain buttons, things. Sometimes we hide add if they can only view, and you can't, and they need certain accesses that gives them the add. This is how we take it away. So that's just one of the tips and tricks. Okay. On the finders, right? So I don't know if you know this. I'm just going to go to my vendor screen. And I'm going to open that up. So when you click on the finders, it always gives you a default view. Any adjustments or any customizations you make to any of your finders are locked with your profile. If you log in with a different profile, it'll reset because you need to customize them. If your user gets reset or deleted for any reason and you get a new user account, you have to set these customizations up again. So what we like to do is, if you didn't know, you can actually select the columns that you want to see in a view, in a screen that you go into regularly, whether it's purchase orders or the GL account screen. If you don't want to see everything, you can limit what you get to see in the screen. So I like to play around with the columns, take them out. I just want to see the vendor number. I just want to see things like a payment code, and maybe I just want to see the, for example, the status. Then all I see are those three columns. So if I have it like this and I go back it's going to save this view. And you can do that to every screen in Sage. What I've done is that I've also set a piece of criteria, so it'll only give me this specific vendor number. So again, if you're busy with a certain function, if you're busy looking at standardizing addresses and things like that, if you only want a certain number of columns, you can use the finders to help you and guide you and help you do that quicker as well. The example that I would have liked to use is to show you that you can also export files or export information from Sage. So one of the exports that I like to do is, if I want to do a if I'm going to export certain information and I only want certain fields, and I'm going to do that constantly over and over and over, you can actually create a script that'll do that for you. So by default, I've got, when you export from Sage, you will always export whatever tables they've got listed along with every single field in that table. So that's what this means. If you expand this list, just tab across, you expand this list, you'll see that every single item is ticked. I've created a script, an export script. So I'm going to click on load script. I'm going to find my file, which I've saved as an XML. So did you notice how I don't have this one selected? I don't have this selected. But if I expand this, I only have my vendor number and my address lines, because this is the piece that I'm going to work on and I'm going to customize and I'm going to fix all the addresses in the system. Then I can save my export files exactly the way I want them. And then when I go file export, it will always do those fields exactly the way I've specified. So that's how you can use your exports and your criteria to set them all. And what I've done is I've exported it to Excel. So what I can do on this, I can fix all the addresses, save them, and import them back into Sage. So if you're doing a mass update of master data, your exports and your scripts will work really well with that. Okay. Let's go back to tips and tricks. Color-coded companies. So you can color, if you have 10 or more companies, even if you have 3 or more companies, you can color code them. What I like to do is we like to make the test companies red so that when users log in, they always know they're not in the live production companies. It's just a way of, just taking note of your surroundings to know that, oh, okay, I'm in the wrong company. I need to go into something else. So we can, again, color coding companies, when you change the color, it also filters through to your web screens. So they are both the same always. Limiting view of company list. This is something that we can do in the background for you, depending on if you want it done. What would happen is if you had multiple companies in Sage and you click on your open company list, this is what you will see, right? It's going to do this because once you put your password in, you will only see the companies that you have access to. So if we implement this, don't be alarmed that nothing is there. You just put in your password and the list will populate based on what you've got set up in user authorizations. So you'll only ever see the companies you have access to. And therefore you always go into the correct companies. Again, we like to make the test companies red so that you always know where you're working at any one time. The tip and trick that I like to tell users about is credit cards as banks. So what we like to do is you can take a credit card, you can set it up as a Sage bank account with a general ledger account attached to it. And what that gives you is that you can now use that to post transactions. You can use it to make payments. You'll be able to see that the payment has gone through. You'll be able to reconcile. You've got card fees like you would a normal bank. That way you can always keep track of the charges on your credit cards. This is just a tip that we like to give to clients if they ask us, how do we use credit cards in Sage? Set it up as a bank. That way you'll have full visibility of what goes in there. You can reconcile it based on your credit card statements. You can make payments using bank-to-bank transfers. And you can also pay using your credit card. So in an AP payment batch, when you select your bank, change it to Visa or MasterCard or whatever codes you give your banks, and you'll be able to do payments, and they'll show up on your reconciliation screen that you'll be able to then reconcile and print reports for. So another tip, if you didn't know how to use credit cards in Sage before, that is the recommended and the way we'd like to advise our clients to do. Okay. Another tip and trick we like to talk about is payment selection codes. So if you make use of payment selection codes, you have to set them up by vendor. You can do so using criteria like only USD vendors, only CAD vendors. What's nice about payment selection codes is that you can use it in conjunction with EFT processing. So and by doing that, you can set up a different file type, if you will. So for your wire transfers, your ACHs and things like that, you can actually generate batches specifically for those file types so that when you generate that EFT file, it's exactly in the format that you want. So mostly we like to use the payment selection codes for separating CAD payments that go through one bank, USD payments that go through another bank. That way you can always manage and keep them in separate batches. You can always generate the payment registers and make sure that you're paying with the correct bank to the correct vendors and things like that. So that's also very a useful tip that we like to impart for our clients. Okay, back to tips and tricks. I think that is it for tips and tricks. So next, I want to touch on. Paul mentioned earlier on that we have a set of vendors that are tried and true that provide functionality that the standard Sage doesn't have. And we work with these vendors quite a lot. So I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of this, what I think is one of the key features or updates that Orchid Systems has done. They are the vendors that supply the EFT processing program. What they've done in the last two versions is that they've now implemented SFTP, which is Secure File Transfer Protocol. What this does is that it has a secure way of sending that EFT file you generate with your vendor information, the people that you pay. That file, when it gets generated, will be on a server somewhere. There's always that worry that it will be intercepted by someone who has access to a folder on the server that you haven't locked down. So what SFTP does is that you can set up a path that it goes to at your bank. So the minute you create that EFT file, it goes there automatically and it gets processed. You get a report generation, say it was successful or if it failed. That way there's no intervention between creating the file and getting it to your bank. Okay, most of the banks do have the ability to do this. We've implemented it successfully at a couple of clients recently. So it basically just makes that transfer safe with no edits in between, because you know, changing a bank account number within the file before it goes to the bank. So we're trying to limit that happening. And the other option is also SFTP with two-factor authentication. So those are the two key releases that ORCID have released for the EFT processing. They also do things like inter-entity. They also have a document management module that's pretty good. But those are the key features we use. Other vendors include norming. So norming to the asset management software, which integrates all of the applications that I'm speaking about now are fully integrated with Sage, meaning if you log into Sage, you'll see it on the menu bar on the left-hand side. So it's fully integrated with the Sage look and feel. It wouldn't stand out saying, oh, this is not a Sage product. It fits in exactly where it's supposed to on the left-hand side of the menu bar. You can assign access, and again, a lot of the third party are trying to keep up with the web screen creation. Most of them are pretty on par. I can't speak under correction if all of them are there yet, but I'm not 100% sure. But they are constantly improving as well with all their updates. They're all compatible with version 2023. So the classic screens are a go. It's all good. Okay, norming is asset manager. Another one we like to use a lot is the workflow system. So this is your paperless automated purchase to pay system, purchase requisitions, purchase orders that flow into accounts payable, payables workflow batches. So you've got your purchase order approval on the one side and your AP invoice approval on the other side, and then these get approved by multiple approvers as well. So that is specific tech. They also have additional modules such as workflow documents and workflow notifications that you can put on any other for example, on master data. If you want to lock down changes to master data, the Pacific Tech modules can do that as well. And then another one, we like to use a Technisoft Service Manager, which is your service maintenance software. Again, all fully integrated with Sage, the financial modules of Sage. So look and feel exactly like you're working on one big ecosystem of Sage. So again, if any of these interested you at all, please contact us and we can arrange a demo to show you what other modules and add-ons that they have to enhance your Sage 300 experience. And I think that is it from me. Time for Q&A. As with a lot of the admin services functionality, it's limited to the Sage admin user. But not all of it. Luckily, this report is not one of them. So it is part of the admin services security group. So we can assign that report only as part of admin services access to anybody in the company. So yes, a non-admin user can print that report as needed. So ORCID have let us know that they use PGP, which is pretty good privacy encryption on the EFT files. You will need an additional module to help set this up, and it's called ORCID Extender. However, before even making the decision to go that route, you need to find out with your bank if they accept this type of security. So it's going to be a combination of a discussion between your bank and between ORCID systems, but yes, they do. They do support file encryption.
If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you very much, Jill, for going through all that, and thank you everybody for attending.